So I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. So we're now at the end of Maker Faire, and all of us have been here all weekend. So I'm losing my voice. Brook's losing his voice. Che-Wei's already completely lost his voice, so he's going to be interpreting through Taylor. So that's just a disclaimer. But we're all really excited to be here and to be talking about this topic of Kickstarted Now What. So Sabrina got in touch with me as we were thinking about different things to talk about, and this was right after our Kickstarter project for OpenROV, which is an open source underwater robot, had got funded. And we were learning so many new things every day that I just thought that this was a really, really ripe idea to be discussed in public. And as soon as I started bringing it up with some other project creators, everyone had this same thought, that this is a really great idea to really discuss some of the things that we're going through. So I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves and talk about their projects. But first, I just wanted to see a quick show of hands. How many people know what Kickstarter is? So everybody? Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't know what Kickstarter is? Okay, so Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where anyone with an idea can go and post their idea and try and solicit backers, so people who agree with their idea and are willing to put up money to see that idea happen. And so there's a project minimum level, and if the project reaches that goal, then everyone's credit cards get charged, and the idea actually happens. And so what's been happening is a lot of makers, people with ideas of things they want to make, have been putting their projects up on Kickstarter with the hopes of finding people who are interested in supporting the project. And so now we're in the situation where people have to actually make things. And these are a few of the folks who have done that. And Brook, why don't we start with you? Why don't you talk about your project?
Sure. I'm Brook from PrinterBot, and before I got into this 3D printing thing, I was a web designer that was kind of frustrated with not being able to hold what I made in my hand. So I'd been tinkering around with 3D printers and bought a cupcake, and decided, you know what, I want to do this as maybe a side business. Just kind of get 3D kits together on the side while I do web design. The Kickstarter changed all that. I'm doing it full time now. But we launched our project in, I think it was November 17th or 18th, I forget which day, of last year. And the goal was 25,000. And I literally bellyached over, what's that amount that you say, because it's kind of like, this is how awesome I am, or, this is, I don't think I'll do much. But we decided maybe I could make 50 bots in my garage, because I didn't have a facility and, I'm just a guy with a garage. So I thought I could make 25,000. So when I told my wife, 25,000, she was like, oh, that's a lot of money, come on. Are you sure? And I was like, I don't care. If we don't make it, I'm still going to do 3D printing. We funded, I don't know the exact numbers, it's kind of a blur. We funded the next day, and like 2 days later, we got 25,000, and then it just kept going. I kept having all these people send me, literally they would somehow they were getting data from the site and drawing graphs and showing trajectories and all this, you're going to make $500,000. I was like, no, I don't think so. It was just completely unbelievable. But by the last day, we made $830,000 in 30 days. You get a choice. Do they still do that? 60 days, 30 days?
No, I think it's different. I think it's different now.
It's different?
Yeah.
Okay. 90? Oh,
60.
60? I chose, I remember it being a choice, and man, I'm so glad I did 30, just because that month was like, I lost years off my life.
We did that too.
Days,
we did 30 days. I'm so glad we did 30 days.
But the last day got really crazy. But for me, I don't take credit for, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. There's rep rappers all over the world that know more than me, that have done a lot way before me. And so it wasn't completely, just me and that design. I just improved something that was out there. So, 830,000 is ridiculous, and it did not settle. We'll get into the story maybe later, but that was the project, that was the amount. I thought I was going to die that month.
Happy happy you didn't die.
Yeah, me too.
But I know what you mean in terms of losing years off your life and losing lots of sleep. But so Che-Wei and I'm Taylor, this is my partner Che-Wei. We kind of spend all of our time making things, and the project that we launched on Kickstarter was called Pen Type A, and normally we build things that we just kind of want for ourselves, and among these things are a bike part, a light fixture. Sometimes we make little pieces of software that are just things that we kind of want. And up until that point, we sort of sold maybe a couple of these things to other people, but we decided one day that we wanted this pen, which was inspired by a cheap plastic pen that we use all the time that we love, and we decided, like, this thing needs a much more durable home. We want an indestructible version of this that's going to last for forever, so we designed a pen that comes in a ruler sleeve. It was the perfect pen that we wanted. We had 2 of them fabricated for ourselves, and we were really happy with those. And a couple of friends of ours were like, you know what, you guys should try out the Kickstarter thing, and we were nervous about it. So we thought, maybe we can sell 50 of these, and we decided to launch a campaign where we would pre-sell 50 of them for $50 each, which would cover tooling costs. And we ended up launching our campaign. Our goal was $2,500, and it ended up going above and beyond our expectations. I think we sold over 5,000 pens in the end, and over 4,000 backers, and it was amazing. And the adventures kind of ensued from that point on. It's been quite the year.
What was the date?
So we launched on August 15th last summer, and we have 12 more pens to fulfill. We just found that out 2 days ago, which is amazing.
A quick note, it was their project that kind of put me over the edge. I was like, you know what, if those guys can do it, I can. Seriously, I wanted their pen, right? I'm not a backer, but me and my wife were just sitting there going, it's a pen. These people are doing it with a pen. Surely, if they do it with a pen, we can, come on. But yours really left an impression on me. I just wanted to tell you it was awesome. It was right before ours.
That's great. You know, so our project, we launched it just in August of this month. So this is great because we kind of have a timeline of some of the first people to use it. And Brook, when your project went crazy, that was one of the first ones that really kind of went nuts. At least in the world that I see through Kickstarter, which is all the maker projects.
Yeah, well, we ended up at number 2 at the time.
Right.
And then right after was the Pebble.
Right. So we studied your project, like, wow, man, what did you do? And like, especially with the shipping stuff, we were.
I remember you came up to me and were like, kind of obnoxious with all the questions. And then I realized, oh, he's doing a Kickstarter. Now I love him.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, there's a lot to learn, of course.
So that's a kind of a side note, but we're all backstage introducing ourselves and getting to know each other, and we, you know, even though we've never met, we share this bond because we've been through this process of going through these Kickstarter projects and the ensuing, you know, adventure that it is of making something. So we launched our project in August, and my friend Eric and I, we build underwater robots, and we've been working on this open source underwater robot for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And we're finally at that point where, you know, we'd been planning to do a Kickstarter project, you know, even up in a year before this. So we've had this idea for a while and moving along, but we kept pushing it back. And I'm really, really glad that we did. Because not only did we get to learn from folks like you, but we really kind of knew what we were getting into, I think. I mean, it's still, you never quite know what you're getting into, but we did. We set our goal at 20,000, and we raised that in, I think, 2 hours. And we ended up with, I think, $110,000-ish. And so we're in the midst of fulfilling these kit orders. So we've had to deal with everything from sourcing parts, which we thought we knew really well. We had called all of our suppliers and gotten estimates and knew kind of where we were. You think you know that until you're exhausting every hobby shop in the country of these little air propellers that you. But we thought we had everything in line, but it's still kind of a shock that month and then the following months. So I don't know, Brooke, we were talking and we had like all these ideas of different things we could go into. I think that what did you find was the biggest surprise?
Yeah, great. That's what I want to know from you guys. You know? And we've talked about it. So I don't know. When I roll it over in my head, there were a lot of surprises. One was just the sheer volume that I had to. It was so surreal that I was going to do this now, you know. And when magazines and people start calling, you know, it's like, what? This is really happening. But really, where it started to be very, very overwhelming was when we actually started to make. And you're like, okay, I got one done, you know, and it's like, I gotta do 1,500 of these, you know. 2, you know, and I'm like, I'm staying in my garage. As long as I can stay in my garage, we're in the garage, you know, and so I've got like one guy showing up at 7, and we're out there like, you know, printing, you know. We're looking at each other, we're idiots, what are we doing? We gotta scale up. So that's when it really hurt, is when we're like, okay, if I did some math on this, we'll be done in 12 years, you know, so we got to go up a level. And so we hired somebody else, and then it didn't help much, you know, 8 years. So finally when I was like, okay, and the other thing too is I didn't have any money when we started. I've never known money, I've never had money. And so that number, 830,000, which by the way, this was one surprise. It turns into 750,000 when I hit my bank account in January 2nd. If you're a tax guy, you know how that hurts. So the money was weird, and so I'd never spent money, and then I had to start spending money. So writing those big checks, it was weird. But when I went to make them, and when I had to go start figuring out how to use that money, it was like, I've never done this.
I'm going to try and pull out little tidbits, because I think that's an important, like, you know, as we talk, like, just so people can take these lessons. How many people, by just curiosity, are planning to do a Kickstarter project in the next 3 months? Wow, that's pretty good. So I'm going to try and pull out these tidbits so you can take these, and these are real lessons you can learn. That's one. So you don't get all the money. The Kickstarter, there's 5% that goes to Kickstarter, some goes to Amazon. And then also some people's credit cards don't go through. So I think planning for about 90% of the funding goal is good. So
maybe less.
What?
It was slightly less than
yeah,
that.
So just be prepared for that, and you don't want to have kind of razor thin. It's funny, Brook and I both saw Chris Anderson, who runs DIY Drones, talking about his business, and he's like, so the number you want to do is 2.6x your cost of materials, and Brook and I were both like looking at each other, wow,
I was like, oh crap, should I let anybody know? That is, I'm nowhere near that.
So 2.6x the cost of your materials. So that's the margin you want to go for. Like apparently that's
Says
the number.
them.
Says them, I guess, but
says, I don't know, Spark Fun, Adafruit, those kind of things.
Well, that's like the consensus, like wisdom of these maker businesses is like 2.6 is the number you want to try and hit. So
I think it's a little high, but that's just me.
Yeah, but that's also you and me we're making these things in a garage.
Yeah.
You know?
So 2.6 of what it costs you is
to make it. That's what you should price it at.
Price. Final.
But that you got to be careful if you're using Kickstarter, because then there's shipping costs too. Right? So make sure you know what your shipping is going to be.
How did you guys tell us about shipping? What was your experience?
Shipping was the easiest thing that we did, actually.
Really?
Yeah. We had a couple of friends. I guess a lot of you know the Glyph and the Cosmonaut, which are run by Studio Neat, Tom Gerhardt, and Dan Provost. So they're two very good friends of ours. And
you know them?
Yeah.
That was the other one I loved.
Yeah, they're
I've
great
met
guys.
them, yeah.
But they were our inspiration. They told us you need to launch something on Kickstarter, and they sort of held our hands at the very beginning and said, fulfillment is going to be hard, you should find Shipwire is a good company, Whiplash we ended up finding and going with, and fulfillment for us was it's a big check that you have to write, but at the end of the day, it's very easy, and if you get over 1,000 of something to send out, don't waste your time doing it, really budget for it, and then send it to somebody else to get it done for you. But that was easy for us.
Interesting. So I'm pulling out these tidbits. So they talked to people who had been through the project before. Like Bree said, I was calling them, bugging them, trying to figure this thing out. If you're about to launch a Kickstarter project, pick 3 projects that you are amazed at how well they went and that are similar to yours, and model them after that. So kind of have,
read the book you're writing.
Yeah, read the book that I'm writing. But yeah, just have idols, kind of who you think, man, if we could do that just like them, that's who we want to be like. And Brook was one of them that
don't call me, I made all kinds of mistakes.
Yeah. But we're all learning, and I think that's an important aspect, and I've been kind of writing a lot about this, and I think that this whole maker movement is about DIY, but don't be confused. It's really about doing this all together, and everyone's really eager to kind of share advice and share what they're learning. So I think that you'll find the same thing, is that project creators, a lot of times the big ones like Brook, and I'm sure you guys, and that's like, I get a lot of emails from people asking, what should I do, what should I do? But I think all of us have probably written about this somewhere, and like saying, here's the lessons. Just kind of go through and see what they've talked about for their project. I want to like get through a lot of things. So what about sourcing or like manufacturing? Because some of these projects go crazy, like the Pebble watch and all these things. And I think once you hit those kind of levels, it's really a different ballgame. I think you're finding a manufacturing partner like PCH, you're finding a manufacturing partner like Dragon International or something like that, and you're in a whole different level. But some of us are at these kind of smaller levels, and we got to make these. So how did you approach the kind of manufacturing process?
Good question. So finding a manufacturer for us was probably the hardest part of this whole thing. We failed twice at finding a manufacturer before we actually found somebody that we're still working with. The way that it started out is Che-Wei and I, we get prototypes of all the stuff we made in China, because we make a lot of our things out of metal, and to prototype something there, it costs you maybe $100, whereas if, I don't know, maybe something this big, CNC'd, whereas if you were to get it at a machine shop locally, it's going to cost you like $2,000 at least, or 10 times that price, which is way too much money for us to spend on just these little crazy weird ideas that we have. So that was the case with the pen, and we had 2 of them made in China, and we decided that, hey, this person seems like a nice guy. He probably can make 5,000 of them or 6,000 of them if he can make these 2 pretty well. So we ended up going with the guy that made the prototypes for the first 2 pens, which, as we started getting into production and going forward to make our golden samples, which are the samples that you agree on before they actually jump into manufacturing, as we started getting versions back, things were getting fixed and other things were going wrong, and it got to a point where it was like 2 months deep, and we couldn't figure out why things were getting so much worse than they had been at the beginning. So we ended up going to China and figuring out what was going on with them, and we ended up leaving that first manufacturer because we realized that they weren't set up at all to make what we had. They didn't have a quality control department at all, and it was just going to be way too much of a headache to work with them.
How shocking was it to see the place?
It was very shocking. Going over in my head, I was expecting CNC machines, and when we got there, it was all manually operated mills. And when you're working with precision metal, you really use robots wherever you can.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's another tidbit. Use robots wherever you can.
Exactly.
Seriously.
That's a great one.
Yeah. So that was very shocking to us early on, and yeah, we originally thought that this would take like 2-3 months to fulfill. I remember back in September, October, Che-Wei and I had a conversation like, imagine these things aren't ready before Christmas, and it's like almost Christmas again. And yeah, so anticipate everything. Yeah, the things that could have gone wrong, we never could have imagined before we started. So I don't want to be a pessimist about this, but it was really hard for us, harder than we could have possibly conceived when we started out.
And did you make yours in your garage? Did you do most of them there?
No, we moved out pretty quickly to a place in town. We got space.
We're gonna do that too.
But to try to start like a manufacturing place, at the same time you're trying to fulfill orders, at the same time you're still developing the product,
and
like improving it.
And like doing the paperwork to be a company, so
we're incorporated now.
That's a lot of work.
I had 2 other companies. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So it was chaotic.
Yeah, that's something that I think would be valuable to create. Is kind of, and I started writing about this, and I haven't quite thought about it all the way through. Is like, so if you're not a company yet, and you just kind of want to see how your idea goes, like, get the incorporation done, but you don't have to get the lawyer, lawyer and the accountant. You can save till you find out if you're way over your goal. I think that like the timeline for knowing when to kind of do all that stuff would be valuable.
Well, it's weird that we did it in different. So your product existed before the Kickstarter, right?
For a long time.
Yeah. So that's a contrast to me, and even you guys. How long after you made this thing did you jump in? But it existed in a couple.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple months
Right.
that we just had this that we used ourselves.
Mine was completely new, and so 3 different approaches. Really, I mean, you how many moving parts? I mean.
Yeah, there's 4 parts
Four
that
parts.
are made and one
Lots
I
of
think,
parts.
cartridge that's bought.
Lots of parts.
Yeah.
Lots of parts. So you kind of see some of you guys might be doing something with 4 parts and maybe more, but it's all hard.
It's all hard.
all hard.
Yeah.
So, but that's interesting though, because I think that our product existed for a long time, and I'll reiterate this. I'm glad we waited, because I think that it was really valuable, because I don't think the product that we had, we weren't ready for that. If we would have done this a year earlier and it would have gone similarly well, it probably wouldn't have gone as well. But I'm glad that we took the time to find. I call them our 100 true believers. So the people we met before who really believed in it, and we knew we could get to that next level. So I'm really glad we took the time to do that. And I think you guys kind of were on Kickstarter in a time where it was still easy to be discovered, and there were still relatively smaller projects than there are now. It's like,
That's a good point.
Everybody wants to do a Kickstarter project, so I think it's really, which is great, but I think it's really, the discovery issue has changed since when you guys.
Were you guys featured? Wow. You?
We were.
We sent
one
2
day.
emails. A lot of people ask us this question. We sent an email to a pen blog, the man that runs Pen Addict, and one to Tina from Swiss Miss, and she posted it, and I think that was really the one email that made it go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't post or do anything after that because it was overwhelming.
We were featured too, and I really credit the viral thing. I did web design before. I did some social media stuff, but I'm not a genius. I mean, it happened. It had a life of its own that can happen, but being featured certainly does help.
Yeah, I think it helps, but I think that you really can't control that. And everyone asked me, how do I get the press, or I'm saving this to deliver this to press, and I'm just thinking, don't worry about that, because I could show you the stats on our Kickstarter project, and being on Wired and being in all these things, we got 2 click-throughs. I mean, it really was. We got a lot of click-throughs, but not a lot of backers. And the press
I got
didn't
huge
matter
traffic.
as much.
I got huge traffic, but it didn't change. There was one spike,
Yeah.
but it didn't really change it.
Most of the people that we got were, really, from the email list that we had accumulated. So we'd spent a year, coming to Maker Faire and going and showing up and collecting email addresses and really trying to find our core believers. So that's always what I say is, don't try and bet the house on a lot of press.
I think it's price point for us though, because it made an effect for you guys, right?
Yeah.
On the mentions that Swiss Miss, I don't even know what that is.
I don't know where else people came from.
See, I think the price point might have been, people would read about it and yeah, I totally want one of those.
Yeah,
like
$50 is definitely an impulse buy. I don't know how much.
Mine was 500.
Yeah, that's
I'm 700.
definitely not.
400, yeah.
700.
More. Underwater robot, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, I guess you guys have questions. That's great. Yeah, so the backgrounds, I'm Brook, I'm not trained in any of this stuff. I've just been making for the past year and a half. I just kind of came to Maker Faire and started doing this stuff and happened to meet my friend Eric, who has a mechanical engineering background. But we're making these in his garage, and that's another thing is like Brook, and this is another thing that I think is important is don't underestimate the space that this stuff requires. It's one thing to look at these numbers on a spreadsheet and be like, we could do that. But it's another thing to have all these boxes in your garage. And it's like, Eric and I can't even move anymore. We got our little chairs and we got boxes surrounding us. So I think thinking about kind of the space, we're going to have to move out. Brook's having to move out. But we're going to make ours ourselves. And but we're plugged into the tech shop community in San Francisco, so we have access to laser cutters and production equipment. And I think that's another thing that's starting to really, really develop is this ecosystem of maker spaces and hacker spaces and other people who know how to make things and get things done. So to the extent you can plug in to those networks and talk to people and explain what you're trying to build, those networks know how to make things. And we've hired a lot of people from Tech Shop like just fellow members, just to help us just do these different production runs. So we're becoming a manufacturing company essentially. And that's the same way that for you guys.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. We're doing everything we can in-house. I bought laser cutters. I've got two. We bought any tool. I'm a big tool guy, so it's like, buy the right tool. Don't mess around with the wrong tool. Buy the right tool.
He's right.
Or if you don't have it, if you don't have it, find a guy that has it, and that's the guy you hire. Don't hire some guy that's cheaper. Get the exact right tool for what you're doing. Don't waste your time. But anyway, so yeah, we're manufacturing most of our. We buy a few things from China. I mean, like stepper motors. I don't make those. I don't machine polish rods. And buy them.
But you're managing inventory, and you have like this whole. It's an
we're on drop cam. We're one of their. Go to the public cams. You can see us. It's like a mess in there. But
so you guys have a live video
all the time. You can see me all the time.
That's really cool because what we're doing is we're doing all our development meetings on Google Hangouts. So
cool,
on
yeah.
air, so it's live. We have all of our developers and anyone can watch it. So yeah, I think
I've tried to let everybody see what we're doing. Even they see me dance around to the music and be in a bad mood and gripe out my wife. Sorry, babe.
I think we should get into that too, is like being transparent with backers. But I want to hear how you guys met your manufacturers.
So we met our manufacturers. The first ones, we use a website called mfg.com where you can upload parts and get quotes on your drawings. And we make tons of stuff through them. It's always a gamble, but that's it's cheap and it's worth it for us. And then our current manufacturers, we switched everything over to a manufacturer in Vermont who we met through my grandfather. Crazy enough. We actually visited a bunch of metal machinists all over, like in Connecticut, in New York, in Vermont, and this guy is the one for us.
That story's not uncommon. I've heard a lot of these projects saying, I know a guy. Sabrina told me, hey, I know you guys need help. I'll introduce you to this person. And there's so many people like that, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people are connecting to kind of this old manufacturing world, and it's maybe this is kind of reinventing manufacturing. I think it's really cool.
The thing that you bring up too so every time we talk about this a lot, Che-Wei and I, is like, all right, should we do a Kickstarter project where we design something for a specific machine that we want and then just buy that machine and make it? I'm not that into machines. Che-Wei is much more into machines than I am. And for this pen, a lot of people ask us, like, why didn't you guys just do this yourself? But if you actually go to the facility and see where the pens are made, it's made on like 7 or 8 different, almost $1 million machines, which we obviously can't afford, and we don't have the space to run or the facilities or people to run. So that's always like, I think there is a way to think about how you design something so you can design it for a single process. And if you're successful at that, then you can have control over everything, and it's a lot of work, but you're adding value to your company. And
are you guys going to continue to sell? I mean, did you intend to be in business after the Kickstarter?
So originally we wanted to sell 50 pens and then have the tooling available so that we could just have a couple other ones to sell on our website. Like we have, bike parts on our website and just sell them like that. That was our goal in the end. Our Kickstarter, we are going to have that now. So yeah, we do have that with our Vermont manufacturer.
Yeah, that's why I bought laser cutters, because I knew I wanted to do other products and I wanted to be in business right after, so I wanted all that control in my shop. It's a different price point than $1 million lathe or whatever.
You've done a really good job with that, I think. This kind of life after Kickstarter. And that's something we've been trying to think hard about. It's like, okay, we're going to do this batch, and like, how do you, because that's a whole nother, like, gap you got to jump, is actually becoming a business and
yeah, I was telling some guys I was talking to earlier, making a product is hard. Some people pitch products to me and I just want to tell them, it sucks. Don't do that, but why not try, but then like the guy that programs for me did this Kickstarter, it's terrible. But you feel bad, but it's not, products are hard that sell well. So it's hard to do that. It's hard to fulfill, it's harder to take that product and fulfill a Kickstarter quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's even harder to run a business. And so you're talking about 3 different skill sets, and it's got to be one company do all of that. And so it compounds. And for me, my stress level was like, I was like, it was terrible. Because I've done a business, but not I'm not produced or manufactured anything. So it just compounds, and if it goes big, you always want it to go big, and it always cracks me up when people. I mean, I was talking to these guys that are doing the SLA printer, or
Form Labs, right?
Form One.
Form Labs, is that what you're talking about?
I'm sorry, I didn't even know the name of the company. Those guys are right back there. So they're 5 days in and did 1.2 now.
And it's really cool. You should go check it out. It's in the 3D printer.
Yeah, check it out. Buy
cool.
one. I'm going to be a backer very soon. The point is, it's like you can't imagine how hard doing that at that scale is. But people are like, oh yeah, I totally want to sell 1 million of these. Like, and I'm like, oh, you're never going to be able to do that. It will crush you, But some people are up for it.
Yeah.
These guys are impressive.
They got a team. I'm impressed with them. I think that Kickstarter just changed the rules, right? And I wrote a post about this for Make, and I really think it's great. And a lot of people were mad and were commenting on the blog post saying that it's not backers have the right to decide, but you know what? What they're doing is protecting project creators.
Yes.
Just like you said, it's for your own sanity. I think it's a great change, and I think that it's they're doing their part, but I also think us on our side, the makers, and all of us who've been through this, we kind of have a responsibility to make the path easier for people to learn these kind of different things. Because we all had to learn manufacturing, right? We had to navigate this process, which is, there's a whole missing generation of manufacturing knowledge in this country. So it's been.
Dude, that's what I'm stoked about is there's people making stuff again.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's so awesome.
Nancy. That's a good question. I want to repeat it just because, so it's recorded, but Nancy asked what, you guys had some delays and some issues, but you guys both did a really good job of managing the community and explaining those, and how did you keep your head during those moments? And were there any tips or tricks, and how did you keep a cool head?
So thanks for the question. Just be honest is really what we did. There's no tricks to it. Just be as transparent as possible. I mean, take responsibility for everything, but there's a reality of everything that's going on, and as long as you're transparent and telling people what's actually happening, I mean, you're not lying, and people are people, and everybody for the most part was very nice and understanding, which has been great.
Everybody?
And ignore the trolls. So out of this also, like, I read the comments and they hurt me. Che-Wei reads them sometimes, and he tells me not to read them because he just ignores them, and he's better at ignoring them than I am. But yeah, ignore the trolls. There's always going to be people. I mean, we had like over 4,000 backers for our project, and yeah, there's like 5 or 6 people who posted negative things, which in a single comment thread, like, yeah, those are very loud voices, but in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. And I can't tell you how many emails have come in and messages from people who have been overwhelmingly supportive, and it's very hard to get distracted and bogged down by that 1 or 2 or 3 guys who just like are mean about it, but ignore it. So.
Yeah, I'm picking up one other tip. Be a sweet lady, or have a sweet lady on the campaign, because I'm not a sweet lady. And I had I felt like there were lots of, not just trolls, but people that were, I mean, this is the way I'm thinking it. I thought there were some really stupid people that backed. I'm just no two ways about it. They're not very smart. Because at the top of my page, I'm like putting all this information, and nobody reads anything. No, they don't read it. Or they can't read it. I don't know, but I just thought, like, how many times did somebody have to say, it's February and I haven't got my bot, And I'm like, how's this?
The funny story that you told me was the woman who sent back a fully assembled printer bot and said, fix it and send it back.
I don't know how many, I've got 100 stories of stupid people, but I love them all, of course. But, and by the way, a couple of nuggets here, and I won't tell long stories, but one lady, what he's referring to is one lady, it's a kit, right? She tries to put it together, can't. She can't get it to work. She gets it together, but it didn't extrude the way she wanted it. It's a 3D printer. So she ships it back to me without asking in full thing. She ships the whole thing back that she built, and then she says, yeah, this doesn't work like you said it would, so fix it and ship it back. Thank you. I'm just like, what? Anyway, so here's the nugget though. There's going to be negative people. And this is the nugget, as opposed to what you might think from my comments here. I completely ignored any bad comments. Completely ignored. I wouldn't respond to them. This is my policy, right? My wife hates it. My employees stress out. But I ignore them because feed the trolls? No. Don't feed the trolls at all. That means don't respond. And I told people on the videos that I did, if you have negative, mean, hurtful comments or threats, if you threaten me with, I'm on a social media, they never hear from me again or my staff. Ignore them and have the culture of the people in your comments do the same, because it's just as bad. If somebody that loves you, and I had a bunch of those guys, and God bless them, but they would try to argue with these people, and it's fruitless. I mean, just don't do it. So expect people to be negative about it. Just state how you're going to handle that and follow through with it. And you might not ignore them, but you might have a way of process. And here's the other one, and we've talked about this. If somebody wants their money back, if you read the terms, I didn't have to give anybody any money back. If somebody said, I'm mad and I want my money, boom, you got your money back. I'll send you the money. And it was, sometimes for me, it was $700. Yeah. But in a heartbeat, I refunded everybody until some people were like, well, I don't really, maybe I don't like it either. Maybe I want my money back. If they had a reason, I was like, okay, it's good. It got to be where there was quite a few, many thousands of dollars I refunded. Huh, interesting. Because
So is that something that people should budget for?
Budget, I don't know how I could have budgeted, but what I'm saying is to pay those, you don't even pay them. It's just like they didn't pledge. Make those people go away if they're willing to go away.
I took a lot of time, and Eric and I talked. I said, man, I really hope we just get makers. I don't want people to buy this thing and just think it's going to come in the box and they just drop it in the water and control it. I really wanted makers and tinkerers and people who kind of knew what they were getting. I think that as you kind of do your pitch, of course you want it to go crazy well, but I think you also really want to, even if it's lower than even if that means you're going to get a lower amount, try and attract the right people. I talk about the 100
You did a
believers.
good job with that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think that we've been trying to attract the right people all along, because I think at this stage, we're not trying to get rich selling these robots. We really just want to have this community and this culture, and that's what it's about, is trying to find those people and bring them in and make sure that if people don't belong there, that it's not.
Yeah, the takeaway from what I got from your post was you were very, very clear about the skill level involved. Yeah. I wasn't at all. I was like, you can build this thing in 2 hours. What I said was, I built this thing in 2 hours. And then 2 other bots, and it got complicated. But the point is, you said, this is hard. Yeah. You need to know this, this, and this. If you didn't you say, you got to solder?
Yeah.
That was good.
I'm really glad we did. And we're only sending out 110 of these things. 120. And man, Eric and I look at each other every day and it's this is the perfect amount. It's a lot of work, and sure, we're stressed out and it's a lot of work. But we're not going to make any money, and I still live on a sailboat. But the thing is that it's great. We got the right people. We're gonna, everyone's involved in the process.
Is it just makers?
Yeah, it's people who know what they're getting into. I think. I hope.
I think.
But people we've tried to be really clear about it.
How do you to kind of isolate your audience or address that audience?
So we made that an important note on the top of the thing, and we said it in the video. And like I said, we do these development calls, and all of our updates are about kind of technical developments and things that we're working on. We use the survey, so we came up against this issue where our tether, we were starting to have problems with the communication. We were doing some more testing, and we were having problems with the communication of the two-wire tether. So we sent, as part of our survey, we sent out different options. So we hosted a Google Hangout where we invited anyone to come talk about it. We did a post about it. We answered emails. But then so Kickstarter sends out a survey normally just to get addresses, but we left options for backers there. We said, if you want the two-wire tether, we'll happily send you that one. If you want to do a Cat 5 instead, so we figured out what the problems were. We identified some options and we gave those to the backers. So we're just trying to be as open as possible. Ignore the trolls is a good piece of advice. I'm not sure, but I think the other thing is be open and transparent. I mean, these guys are both really good examples of that. Brook's got a webcam in his facility showing what he's actually doing. So that
for a while, I had the audio on. I thought, that'll be awesome. It wasn't. People started to, like, literally transcribe what I said, and, like, I talk about future products, and they post it online, and all this crazy stuff.
So, you're being open. So this is a lot of work, and Britta, who did the Window Farms project, she wrote in on one of the blog posts and said the biggest surprise that she had was customer service demands, or just kind of dealing with all of these comments, because it's a lot. I mean, that's if your project goes, if you have a lot of backers like these guys do, I mean, you're going to get lots of comments and lots of responses. I mean, I spend a lot of time responding to emails about the project, and luckily I have a teammate who's like working on the making, and so, but I think responding to those, but setting up like channels, right? Like for us, we do Google Hangouts, but someone else, you might do a conference call, like just setting up channels where people have their ability to kind of come in and speak their mind and interact with you. It doesn't have to be all the time, but to set up these times.
What did you guys do for communication? Like, one of my frustrations, and it's just the nature of the beast, I understand why it's done, but Kickstarter has their own email system that is not email, it's just a message. It's just email in Kickstarter.
Oh, the message system.
They say it's email, it's not really email. It's internal communication.
Yeah.
You got to sign in to use it or read it. So a lot of people would email me, and I'm doing this because I have an email address, and everybody can Google me and find it. So I had this competing, like, internal messaging, my email. Did you email me, or did you do this thing? And the comments. I have a website.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole forum community that happened over here, and then there's the comments here, and then, I mean, it got very confusing, and so I was like, I don't like this.
There's comments all over the place. I think that's one of the things.
And so it's like, how did you track all that? It got so crazy for me that I just gave up. I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I will not be on this email. You're cut off. Email me at my email address. And then the comments until the Kickstarter was done. I tried to go in there, but I wasn't in there as often as they wanted me to be, because I had other forums and stuff to answer. Managing all those expectations is tough.
Yeah, I got a funnel, so any message that comes will get right to me.
How do you get, no, it won't. How do you get the email from Kickstarter? The internal communication, somebody emails inside Kickstarter. You're telling me you get an email?
Yeah. but that's probably maybe a setting.
I needed to talk to you. I needed advice.
Okay, so there's ways to do that, but it's going to take up a lot of time. So ours is Open ROV.
We're pen type A.
PrinterBot.
Brook is PrinterBot. So there's a few more questions? Sabrina, I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You're okay.
Okay. Good. Okay, cool. Did you get, what?
In terms of finding the manufacturer in China, how long did that take?
So you'll find that if you launch a Kickstarter project, people are going to contact you to be your manufacturer.
Yeah, that's all the time.
Which was actually, so our first failed Chinese manufacturer, they were the people that made our prototypes, so we knew them prior to. We ended up not working with them in the end. Had a second manufacturer contact us through Kickstarter, and it's an American company that works in China. It's just two guys that run factories there. We ended up using them and going with them for our first order of 6,000 for Kickstarter. Things didn't go we have the pens, but things didn't go according. We don't want to move forward working with them. And we're now working with a manufacturer in Vermont. But it's really, if you want to go the route to make things in China, you need to be there 100% of the time. We thought that we could go and walk away. It's extremely difficult because the second you turn around and get on an airplane, your thing is, there will be surprises, and it's not going to be easy for you. No matter how much you trust whoever you've left behind, I really don't think there's any way around it. And I could get more into that and why.
If you go big enough, there are people who can help, like PCH International and Dragon Innovations in Boston. I mean, they know what they're doing. You know, they can really help you navigate that process.
I talked to Bunny.
Electronics are okay.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
not machine work.
That's a good point.
You have a question?
Yeah, and so now you're producing this in Vermont, and can you talk about the quality, the quality of it, but how also the pricing? We hear so much about that the pricing is so much cheaper in Asia, but obviously not so much for you to make the decision to come into the U.S. Was that a factor in your decision?
Yeah, well, we priced our Kickstarter project for a quote that we had from China. If we had done it differently, if we knew how much problems we would have priced it much differently, and we would have been able to use a Vermont manufacturer to fulfill our Kickstarter orders, but it's way too expensive.
Wasn't that much of a difference between the two?
Oh no, it's a huge difference. It's double.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is double, but it's worth the double?
It's worth the double. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious,
Okay, back.
On your teams, like before you went to Kickstarter, you have an expectation of, you mentioned that you could make 50 in your garage or whatever. I'm curious on your teams of people that you have working on this project actively that are going to be operating and communicating to either your manufacturers, or who's your team? What is your team composed of before the Kickstarter going in terms of actually producing these parts, whether it's people who are talking to manufacturers or a group of people who are making them in your garage? Like, how did you set up and what were your kind of expectations going in?
What I did was I started a meetup group before the Kickstarter, like 8 months before the Kickstarter.
Okay.
If I was going to be an expert on 3D printing, I wanted to do it all the time and lead a group and all that. It's so funny because I showed up and said, I know nothing, we're going to learn together, and then the next week I was the expert. So people gathered around that, and I actually hired from the community that had shown up every Tuesday night, or every month, Tuesday night. So I created this meetup group to find who was really passionate about this, because if you don't hire people or work with people that are passionate about your product, you're wasting your time. Now, you can hire hourly, but I've let people go, I've asked them to leave, I've burned people out. People left on me, just like left the keys and never heard from them again. I've hired friends, I've become friends with people I didn't know before. I hired an old timer. He's retired. And it was just like on this whim recommendation in a pizza place as I was like stressing out. That guy's awesome. So you do have some good surprises, but find people that are passionate first and foremost, and make your terms that you're working with them crystal clear up front. I told all my guys, you're not going to own this company, I'm going to own this company. It sounds really harsh, but I'm giving no part away to you. You will not get part of it. You're going to get paid. So now what they found out was if they're passionate about it and they're in for the long haul and they go the extra mile, I'm willing to look at that long term. But I had people like, the guy showed up. Okay, guy showed up at my house, uninvited, Googled me, showed up, I'm here with my soldering iron, I want to get involved. I'm like, no, that's creepy, and my kids are inside, so what are you doing? Another guy would just come every day and like, I'm here if you need me, we all want to make a lot of money off of this, It's like, that is totally weird. What are you doing?
That happens. Like, like Dave Chappelle used to say that, right? Like, as soon as he got the big check for the Chappelle show, that all of his friends started looking at him like he was the cartoon chicken dinner. Yeah, but we haven't had that problem.
Be clear, hire passionate people, best advice.
Do you write it down? Do you agree with them?
Do I tell people they should write it down? Yes. No, I am a handshake guy, to be honest. Now that I'm incorporated, I've got to do paperwork, but before that, I'd look them in the eye and shake their hand and say, this is what I'm doing. If you don't do what you said, you're gone. So you just have to be clear.
So something that's really interesting that he just said in there that I didn't know about your project is he started a meetup group before and got people who are interested in 3D printing. This is a really underestimated thing and is building your community before you go to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, we spent a year and a half just like showing people our robot, getting advice, developing this community, this online community. So we had this kind of, what's that? Yeah, right? So we spent a lot of time developing that, and I think that's really important, and I think that's a healthy way to do it. So you have this kind of ecosystem around your things. For us, it was just a couple of us in the garage, and then we work out of a tech shop in San Francisco. So it's a community of other makers. So if they're not, so it's weird. We're all in these different stages of our Kickstarter project. You know, some people are just prototyping a new idea. Some people are fulfilling a lot of orders. And I got so much advice from all these guys in shipping, manufacturing, all these things. But now, you know, I'm too busy to laser cut all of our robots, so I've batched that out to some of my friends at Tech Shop. And so we're paying them hourly. So it's kind of this weird thing where we're paying each other like based on like how much demand there is. But and some companies are growing bigger and moving out and hiring people, but it's kind of surrounding yourself with a community of makers who know what they're doing.
Do you expect like going into it saying, you know, I need this much money to do this? Did you expect that if you reached over that you would have to outsource laser cutting parts and things like that? Or do you have a plan in action for like expanding your workforce?
One of the problems with outsourcing is availability, and the Kickstarters tend to have like a really urgent time. And man, I found out right away that outsourcing can be expensive, and if it's in the States, it's very expensive, and they may not have time for you. I tried to outsource some laser cutting, and I fell over. I could have bought 3 laser cutters at what they were going to make on the run that they were going to do. And so I bought my own. You can't count on sourcing being there if you haven't figured it out ahead of time. But you can't get availability unless you put money down, which you don't have. So there is a catch-22 there. It's tough. Real quick, I wanted to ask you guys, do you have a community around the pen? Are there like, what do you...
So yeah, that's a good question. In terms of pen, we made this pen because of an ink cartridge that we love called the High-Tech C, which we discovered after launching that there's a lot of other people out there that like this weird ink cartridge also. And that was something very lucky that happened with us. And now there's probably 10 Kickstarter projects around this pen,
Seriously?
this ink cartridge. Yeah.
See, I was wondering,
really amazing.
because there's already communities of rep wraps. There's communities of robot builders and underwater guys. I wondered, man, do they have a community? But now that you say it, it doesn't surprise me. I think a community around a project is so important.
Yeah.
I look at some products and wonder, can there be a community around that? There probably is. It may just be a little smaller. So tapping in, finding that community, tapping into them, learning about them, being with them, spending time with them.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is Chris Anderson the other day, we both saw that talk, he said, you know what, our competitive advantage is our community, you know, because there's people will clone your thing and do all this. So, you know, I think not only is it important to have, I think it really kind of is what you have. And for us, that's a lot of fun because our community is all these people who are excited about exploring underwater. So kind of pick your community, kind of think about the people that you want to attract and build a project.
Or what you're passionate about already.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously you guys are doing this because you're passionate about it. You've done this stuff.
Time's up.
I think we're up. This was great, you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.